So we spoke in part 2 of the bringing together, the joining together of the highest and lowest tribe. Yehuda, the highest, joining with Dan, the Yehudim, Shebashvatim, the lowest of the tribes. They come together to build the Mishkan. We find it as well that they build the first Beit HaMikdash. Shlomo ben David, Shlomo HaMelech from the tribe of Yehuda, gets the help of a guy named Hiram, whose mother is from the tribe of Dan as well. We're going to come back to this whole mother theme in Dan a little bit later on. On the mystical level, let's look libistically, what are we trying to do by bringing Dan and Yehuda together? So the Mekubalim bring down, you find this in all the light Kabbalistic sources, that we always know about the unifying of Hashem's name. We want to bring together Hashem Hua Elokim. We want to take the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which symbolizes Rachamim, and we want to join it together with Elokim symbolizing Din. Of all the tribes' names, Yehuda is the only one to have all the letters of the Yud Kei Vav Kei in it. The Yehuda is Yud Kei Vav Kei with the Dalet mixed in there. And in another Dvar Torah, we'll speak about the concept of the Dalet, Echad, Acher, not for now. But Yehuda is the 4 letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei in his name. The only one that's going to come close is Yosef, especially when his name becomes Yehosef. At that point, we're almost going to get there, but Yehuda is the one that has all 4 names. He's the symbol of Rachamim. While Dan, what is Dan? Dan is Din. Dan literally is the name of Din. Dan is named Dan Yadin Amo. Dan is named after the concept of Din. Danani Elokim. Rachel says when he's born. So the midah of Elokim is in Dan, while the midah of Yud Kei Vav Kei is in Rachamim. So thus, in a certain sense, the unification of Dan and Yehuda and the building of the Mishkan is unification of Hashem's name. We want to bring God together. Sometimes we want to bring together the Yud Kei and the Vav Kei. We also say Hashem Hu Elokim. We want to bring together the Yud Kei Vav Kei with the Elokim, the Rachamim with the Din. As we spoke so many times, when Hashem creates the world, originally he wanted to create the world on the Midah of Din, but then he realized he can't do it. He has to put the Midot together. You have to add Yud Kei Vav Kei to it. So these 2 Midot are brought together in the creation of the world and in the creation of the Beit Hashem, and that is Betzalel and Ohaliav, Yehuda and Dan coming together. It's an unbelievable Gemara in Ketubot, Daf Hey Amud Aleph. I'd highly recommend reading this Gemara with the Maharsha. Says the Gemara, Darash bar kapara. Gedolim ma'aseh tzadikim yoter me'ma'aseh shamayim va'aretz. The actions of the tzadikim is greater than the actions of Shamayim va'aretz, the action of the creation of the world. The creations of heavens and earth do not compare to the ma'asim of the tzaddikim. Unbelievable, the koach of a mitzvah. The ilu, what's the proof? B'ma'aseh Shamayim va'aretz ketiv, af yadi yasda eretz v'yamini tibcha shamayim. Says the pasuk that when Hashem created the world and the heavens and the earth, so it says Yadi, my hand created the aretz and my right hand created the shamayim. Ve'ilu b'maaseh yadehem shel tzadikim ketiv mechol neshiftecha pa'alta Adonai mikedash Adonai konanu yadecha. Says the Gemara, when the Mikdash Hashem is being built, it says the word Yadecha. Yadecha is in the plural. When Hashem creates the heavens, it's one hand. When he creates the earth, it's a different hand. So we have one hand creating the earth, we have the right hand creating the heavens, so the left hand that we say is earth, the right hand would be the Shamayim. But when Hashem creates the sanctuary, the Mikdash Hashem down below, what does it say over there? When we build it, meaning when we do it, we have ourselves hands in the plural. So therefore, if the Mishkan is built with the hands, that makes it greater, says the Gemara, than the Shamayim and Aretz and the creation of the heavens and the earth. Okay. Now, what's that mean? What is that? What's the depth of this teaching? So says the Maharsha. This is the Maharsha on this Gemara. Mevuar, he brings down. It says that Yodea haya Betzalel letzaref otiyot shenivru behen shamayim va'aretz. What was so special about Betzalel? Betzalel understood how to letzaref otiyot. He knew how to put the letters together. We know God created the world through the Aleph Bet. He understood this creation of the world with the Aleph Bet, the secrets of the letters, and that's why he knew how to build and create this little mini Beit Hashem, this little bringing heaven down to earth down below. He knew how to do that kind of stuff. He had this special kochot. Now we're going to skip a little bit. That now he's going to explain. So what's the idea of the single hand versus the plural hands? The yadav de ka'amar, this plural hands, the ka'amar hacha that's mentioned over by the Mishkan, by the Mikdash, hem shnei midotav yit'aleh. These are the 2 attributes, the midot. And this was put between, okay, now it's getting a little mystical over here. He's speaking about the letters, between the letters, the yud, the k, the bab, the k. Okay, we're not going to skip the Kabbalistic parts. Let's get to the simple idea. He says that ta'echad hayamin b'hu rachamim, the right hand, which the pasuk says that the heavens are with the right hand, that's rachamim. V'asheni hasmol shehu hadin. But tzadikim, so we have ourselves, the right hand is chesed, the left hand is gvura, is din, is strict justice, and we have these 2 hands. So he says about tzaddikim, shehu Betzalel, b'hanilvim elav b'maasehem b'mikdash, Betzalel, and those who join him, they are the ones who know how to bring these kochot down. Now, I'm going to skip a little bit because it gets Kabbalistic. We have the letters of God, Yud, K, Vav, K. Again, Betzalel understands how to mitzvah to otiyot, and the Mashar understands much more than we do what that means on the beginning of the Kabbalistic ideas. But basically, he says that when Hashem created the world, he only created the world with one hand in the Shamayim and one hand down below. In the Shamayim, he created with Rachamim, the Aretz he created with Din. But now down below, both are being used together. The tzaddikim b'ma'asehem, as our Gemara is saying, they're doing yadav in the plural, two hands, which is taking the midat hadin v'agvura with the rachamim and the chayim, and he's putting it together. Now we're skipping a little. It says the Marsha, based on this kavanah, based on this concept, he says the Maaseh Mikdash took place. Hayu mi bet shvatim. Hachad Betzalel lemate Yehuda shu mitzad hayamin v'arachamim. Kmo shekatuv Yehuda kulo al shemo shel Kadosh Baruch Hu Shem Havaya. He says, therefore we have Betzalel from the tribe of Yehuda on the right side, which is the Rachamim side, because Yehuda is kulo shemo shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's the Shem Havaya. He's the Yud Kei Vav Kei, symbolizing Rachamim. ואמר ואיתו אוהליאב בגומר ולמטה דן, דהיינו לצרף אליו הדין והגבורה, כמו שכתוב מדן כעתיד, דכתיב דין דן ידין עמו. So therefore, that Dan is the one that symbolizes the Din, and therefore it's Yadav, it's two hands. It's the two hands of Betzalel and Ohaliav coming together is Yehuda and Dan, Din and Yehuda, Yud Kei Vav Kei Yehuda, Rachamim and Din. That's going to build the Mishkan, have the proper coming together. It's Siruf of the names of God. Actually, I saw brought down in another source as well that Betzalel has the name El in his name as well. El corresponds to Chesed. You have the Chesed, the Gvura, and the Tiferet. You have yourself the Chesed, the Gvura, and the Rachamim. It all comes together in their names. Even Ohaliav has in there an Aleph and a Lamed hinted in there as well. Basically, all the Midot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all the three primary are coming together in the building of the Beit HaMikdash. But particularly, they focus on the Rachamim and the Din, the Yud Kei Vav Kei and Elokim, the Yehuda Dan duo. Okay. But now, this is not the first time. Let's get back. Okay, we had a little Kabbalah. Let's get back now to more simple ideas. But it's not the first time that we have these two tribes team up together. The Midrash teaches us that right before Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, we have the famous words of Vayigash Yehuda. Says the Midrash at this dramatic moment when Yehuda doesn't realize that it's Yosef. He thinks that Yosef is trying to take Binyamin captive. So what does it say? Yehuda, says the Midrash, he roars. He calls out a great roar. He roars out there like a lion. Yehuda is compared by Yaakov Avinu. He's the Gur Aryeh. He's compared to be a lion. Then at that moment, Dan's only son. Dan had one son. His son's name was Hushim. According to simple interpretation, Hushim doesn't mean two people named Hush, but one person, Hushim ben Dan. He had only had one son. And it says that Hushim hears the roar. And then Hushim comes running. Hushim is the language of Chish Chish, Achishena, be quick. Hushim comes running from Eretz Yisrael because he heard the roar of Yehuda when he was trying to fight with Yosef to save Binyamin. So Hushim comes running. This itself is very fascinating. The fact that Hushim is so fast, because Dan's full biological brother, the other son of Bilhah, is Naphtali. Naphtali is compared to the Ayala, the hind, the deer, the ibex, known for his incredible speed. We'll get to in a second in a later midrash. The fact, though, that Hushim can hear the roar is itself a miracle, because Hushim was known to be deaf. Hushim, which means senses, but really he was missing one of his senses. He was missing the sense of hearing. He was deaf. We'll get back to that. And we have the roaring Yehuda, and we have the roaring Hushim ben Dan. Hushim, the deaf Hushim, hears Yehuda roar, so he comes running. Dan is coming to stand by Yehuda's side. If we look at the actual blessings of the sons based on Yaakov's blessings to his kids before he dies, Parshat Vayechi, so he blesses a bunch of his kids and he gives them kind of like a spirit animal. He compares them to a certain kind of animal. So it says over there, when Yaakov blesses Yehuda, so he compares Yehuda to a lion. It says, Gur Aryeh Yehuda. But then when it comes to Dan, Dan is compared to the lowly snake. So again, we have the strong lion, the king of the jungle, the circle of life. He's the king of everybody. And then we have Dan, who's the snake, the lowly snake. Snakes in Judaism is a very negative image. It takes us back to the Garden of Eden with that evil snake. Says Dan, says Yaakov, Yehi Dan, Nachash alei derech, Shifon alei orach, Hanoshech ikvesus, v'yipol rochvo achor. Dan is like the serpent by the road. He's the viper by the path. He bites the horse's heel and the rider falls backwards. Dan is the biting snake. Dan's level is so low that Yaakov closes off that bracha by saying a prayer to Dan. He says to Dan, always look to Hashem for hope. Lishuatecha kiviti Adonai. I wait for your deliverance, O Hashem. Yaakov at this moment, after he blesses Dan to be like a snake, he turns to God. God, deliver us, give us Yeshua, take us out. Lishuatecha kiviti Adonai. This is going to become the rallying call of Dan. The lowly Dan is at the call to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Put his kiviti, put his hope in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because Dan's going to have nobody else. But interestingly enough, when we fast forward to the end of the Torah, we go to Parashat V'zot Beracha, when Moshe Rabbeinu gives the blessings to all the tribes, Dan's spirit animal gets upgraded. He's no longer the lowly snake. Ula Dan Amar, Dan Gur Aryeh, Yazanek Mina Bashan. Bashan is the area of the north, and according to what simple interpretation of the area of where he was in the Golan. But he says, another hint that Dan was up north early on, Ula Dan Amar, Dan Gur Aryeh. Dan becomes the Gur Aryeh himself. So we have Yehuda the Gur Aryeh, we have Dan the Gur Aryeh. So we take the two blessings together. Dan could be there's a line in the front, there's a line in the back. Actually, I think actually works out very well, that Yehuda should be the headline, leading the people first, the head lion, while Dan is the back line, he's the tail. What do we know when Amalek attacks Dan in the desert? What does the pasuk say? Vaizanev becha. He attacks the tail, he attacks the end, the people in the corner, the ones that were spit out of the cloud. Who's the zanav? Who's the tail? Dan is the tail. Actually, a snake looks like a snail. It looks like a tail. So we have ourselves the snake, which looks like the tail, looks like the zanav, but we have ourselves Dan, the lion in the back. We have a lion roaring in the front, and we have a lion roaring in the back. We mentioned that Dan is the sinners. How do they say that Dan is the sinners? It says that Dan is the nechashalim. Nechashalim is the language of chalash. They're the weak ones in the back, the spiritually weak ones. But nechashalim is also the language of the nachash, of the snake. Again, another hint, the Dan being the snake in the back, he's the weak ones in the back. So we have this double idea of lion and snake. Actually, for those that really like lion Torah, so a couple of years ago we sent out a Dvar Torah. I can send you the longer version of it, where we said that Rafiner brought down a Bnei Yissaschar, which says that the Arizal is actually the Arizal was the holy Arizal, who really translated the Zohar for us, gave us the kelim, gave us the tools to really understand the Kabbalah. So says the Bnei Yissaschar, the Arizal was a Gilgul, he was a reincarnation of Betzalel, as Betzalel knew how to, we mentioned the Maharsha, the Betzalel, Chazal tell us, knew how to order, metzaref the otiyot of like the creation of the world. He understood how the letters of the world work with creation. A key theme, one of the major themes of the Kabbalah, is to understand the depths of the letters of the Aleph Bet, and how God used the Aleph Bet to create the world, and how the letters are actually names of God. So just like Betzalel knew how to play with those letters, so too the Arizal is the one that taught us how to understand those letters as well, really open up the Kabbalah and the Zohar for our understanding. He's also the only rabbi to be called an Ari. He's the only rabbi to be called a lion. We don't find Aryehs in all these names of all the different rabbis in the Gemara, in the Mishnah, in the Rishonim. The Arizal is the one that's called the Ari. He's called the lion. And we know Betzalel was very young when he built the Mishkan. He was either 8 years old, maybe he was 13 years old. Some of the Mefarshim, the Briskers, like to make him 13 years old, so he's old enough to do Kinyanim and actually own what he has. But even if at his oldest age, he was young, he was 13. The Arizal himself died very young. He died before his 40th birthday. So we have another concept of Arizal being connected to Betzalel. He's a Gilgul of Betzalel, of the incarnation. Fine. So Dan is the lion as well. I actually heard from our finding that Aryeh is the same letters as Yirah. Yirah is also the gematria of Gvura. So all these things that deal with Din, Aryeh, Gvura, lion being the Melech, being the king, it's the Midah of the Din. This is the name for the tribe of Dan. And what we know about the Arizal's real name, the Arizal stands for Adonenu Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak is the Abba who corresponds to the pillar of Din, who corresponds to the pillar of Gvura, gematria Aryeh. Okay. Back to our topic idea. So we have ourselves the lion up front, and we have ourselves the lion in the back, building the Mishkan, building the Beit HaMikdash. The Mikdash itself is called the Ariel. Chazal called the Beit HaMikdash is called an Ariel because it kind of looks like the shape of a lion, like a crouching lion. Is the symbol of Yerushalayim. Get out those picture books of what the Beit HaMikdash looks like in its big form. It's kind of like a crouching lion. Use your imagination. Hence, Yerushalayim's symbol is the lion. Go to modern day Yerushalayim. You have lions all over the city. Beautiful artistic lions with paintings on the lions all over the Yerushalayim, because it's the symbol of Yerushalayim. Actually, in fact, I read in one source that the symbol on top of many of the Aron Kodeshes, we have the Aron Kodesh in the Beit Knesset, so many shuls, including my shul that I pray in Beit Shemesh, has two lions on top. Either you have it on the parochet sewn in, or in mine they actually have these like two little lions on top of the Aron Kodesh. It actually led to a whole debate in our shul. Are we building idols? Are we not building idols? But ultimately the poskim allow it. Ashkenazi poskim are a little bit more generous than the Sephardic poskim are about this. But we have ourselves these two lions on top of our own kodesh. So I saw it brought down. What do they symbolize? So I always thought, the lion is Yehuda. It's the lion, Beit HaMikdash. Maybe first, second Beit HaMikdash. It's a Beit HaMikdash. No, the lion is the symbol of Yehuda and Dan because they're the two lions. And when they come together, we can build our Beit HaMikdash. We can have our own kodesh, which is our symbolic form of the Aron Kodesh in the Beit HaMikdash. In the old days, it's Yehuda and Dan coming together. I was actually getting a little bit of Kruvim vibes because we know one of the faces of the Kruvim. We always think of Kruvim as the face of the Adam, of the Yaakov Avinu, of the child. But one of the other visions of one of the other faces of the Kruvim is the lion. So I'm wondering if these two lions have a little bit of Kruvim vibes as well. Okay. I want to return for a second back to Hushim ben Dan, because as we mentioned, Hushim, according to Chazal, was deaf. He couldn't hear. But miraculously, he heard Yehuda's roar. Now, Chazal see in Dan and Dan's children physical handicaps. They also see spiritual handicaps. Interestingly, I saw brought down that when we get introduced to Ohaliav, so the jobs that God gave and the special zechuyot that God gave Ohaliav and Betzalel, it expands. So only after Ohaliav was mentioned in Vayakel, then it says milei otam chochmat lev lasot kol melechet charash vechoshev. And then God filled them with the wisdom of the heart to do the work of the carving and the designing. The word harash, carving, is the same letters as heresh, deaf. So dafka once the Dan guy gets in, so now they have a special extra koach of doing carving work, doing malechet charash, but charash, same letters as cheresh. I get another hint to the deaf Hushim ben Dan, the physical defects that you find in the tribe of Dan. Okay, but according to the Gemara, Hushim teamed up with Yehuda, not only in the V'yigash Yehuda when he roars next to him to face Yosef, but they actually team up a second time after Yaakov Avinu's death. So as we mentioned, at the time of Yaakov Avinu's death, the burial, so they had the whole Jewish people, all the sons of Yaakov, arranged in the way they were going to be arranged in the times of the desert, minus Yosef, who was a king. At that time, so they're walking towards Mata Machpelah. They're leaving Egypt, going through the Sinai, eventually making it to Hebron. And when they get to Mata Machpelah, the Gemara, the Midrash, they come along and they say that Esav shows up. And Esav still shows up to stop the burial. Even though all these other kings came and they showed kavod to Yaakov, they put their crown on his coffin. But comes Esav, when they get to Mata Machpelah, he says, Alo, this is my land. I'm the firstborn. I deserve the Mata Machpelah. I deserve the burial spot. You can't bury Yaakov over here. So the sons yell back at him. All the brothers look at each other, yell at him, and they say, what are you talking about? You sold your burial plot to our Abba for the lentil soup. So, this was a deal. It's ours. But the problem was, Esav says, okay, prove it. Where's the deed? And I said, we forgot the deed back in Egypt. So they look at Naphtali. Naphtali was compared to that ayala, that swift, fast deer, the ibex. Run back to Egypt, bring us back the deed. That's what you mentioned, that the kids of Bilhad, Naphtali and Dan, are very fast. That's how Hushim can run very fast. Chish, Achishena, moving very quickly at Messianic times. Let's bring it over here. Hushim. Okay, in the meantime, the deaf Hushim ben Dan is watching the whole scene, not understanding what's going on. And as Rav Chaim Shmulevitz explains, that he did not become normalized to the slow and steady manipulation of Esav. Esav starts off big, makes a crazy claim, this is my land, it's not your land. And as Esav is slowly taking advantage of the brothers, he's normalizing this new reality, that property rights are changing, it's his now, you don't have your deed in front of you, forget it. Hushim can't understand what's going on. He just sees the embarrassment. He doesn't understand, he just sees. So he's not falling to this, he's not become normalized to the new reality. Rather, he only sees one thing. His grandfather, his Saba Yaakov, his body is being desecrated. It's being embarrassed. So what does he do? He takes a makel, he takes a club, and he hits Esav on the back of the head. According to the Gemara, the eyes get knocked out. Kabbalistically, they say this might have an effect on the future most famous of the Danites, Shimshon. The judge is going to be blinded by the Plishtim, loses his eyes. There might be some kind of a Kabbalistic tikkun according to the Arizal over here. But fine. So what happens? He basically hits them. And from the simple Gemara, it sounds like Dan kills Esav. Hushim ben Dan kills Esav. But the Tosfot explain it can't be because we have other sources that say that Yehuda kills Esav. So what's it going to be? So he explains that Dan gave the first hit and Yehuda finishes him off. So we see that Hushim ben Dan together with Yehuda are the finishing blow to destroy Esav, to destroy mystically the Galut of Esav, the final of the Galiot, the Galut of Rome. And this basically is coming out as the famous idea that Esav's head gets chopped off and lands in Ma'at Machpelah. That Dan is the only one who can somehow figure out how to sever the head from the goof, to be able to be spiritual, to be able to make that separation, and then this takes place with the Yehuda and Dan duo. Okay, Chazal come along and they heap great praises on Hushim for doing what no one else had the guts to do. No one else had the gvura. Nobody else had that strict power, the gvura, the yira. Nobody had the gvura of Hushim to attack Esav straight, and that koach, meaning what is seen is as a main character trait that Dan is not scared of anything. When I see in the Shimshon story, Dan is not scared of anything. He's going to go do it alone. He has to do what he has to do. And Chazal just keep heaping praise after praise. I know with our Western minds, we're like, oh my God, they were discussing things, they were having negotiations. How could he chop off his head in the middle? Well, what's going on over here? But Chazal say no. His physical disability of not understanding and therefore not becoming normalized to this manipulation of Esav gave him more clarity than anybody else. So I actually saw it brought down that Amalek attacking Dan in the desert might be seen as a revenge aimed at Dan's kids, because Dan was the one that killed their ancestor Esav. So if Hushim kills Esav, they now dafka want to attack Dan in the desert, and maybe that's another reason for why they're dafka attacking Dan, who's in the back of the bus. Okay, but now I want to focus on the physical disability of Hushim for a second, and then the greater spiritual deficiency of Dan, and how ultimately this is going to be our ticket to our salvation to the times of the Mashiach. So Hushim literally means senses. And in the Torah, it's spelled Chet Shin Yud Mem without the Vav. So where's the Vav? So normally the word is spelled with the Vav, which would be Chet Vav Shin Yud Mem, which would be 5 letters, because we have 5 senses. But here, they say the Vav is missing. Why is the Vav missing? Because he's missing one of his senses. He's missing, Hushim is deaf. So he only has 4 senses, not 5. Actually, if you want to put the Vav hints to Dan in many other ways. But Hashem, maybe next week we'll have a different Dvar Torah about the connection of Dan to the 11 silver Vavim. There were the Vavs, the hooks that were in the courtyard, that Ohaliav built the courtyard, and those Vavs correspond to the tribe of Dan. They correspond to Haman's silver shkalim that he used to try to buy the Jews. And ultimately, it's going to correspond to the hooks that are going to hang Haman and his 10 kids, as there were 11 Vavim. There were 11 hooks in the courtyard corresponding to Dan. These 11 hooks are going to hang Haman, so to speak, spiritually in the future on Haman's gallows, the 10 sons of Haman and Haman himself. Okay, but if Hushim is lacking the sense of hearing, then why is his name senses? Why is his name Hushim? He doesn't have Hushim. He's missing the sense of hearing. So they explain that oftentimes when one sense is missing, when one sense is totally lost, the others get more heightened. So therefore, Hushim ben Dan had heightened senses. And even more so, there's a thing called a sixth sense, that to see the deeper picture, to see the bigger picture, to understand the right thing to do. And therefore, they say Hushim really was the guy of senses. He really understood reality, and therefore he gets the credit for killing Esav, which was the right thing to do at that time. I was listening to a shiur that had a little bit of fun and related this a little bit to today's times, that, here in the Middle East, you can't always turn to diplomacy. There's the people like Esav who are over here that are, trying to mess with reality, mess with property rights, and there's diplomacy, talking, and slowly manipulating, normalizing people to lies. Hushim has the deeper sense. He has the real sense to understand. Now it's time to attack. Now it's time to destroy this Esav right now. It's not a time for diplomacy. There are times when you have to turn to war. This is an evil manipulator that's using the international courts to try to win his case when it's all based off of lies. We got to just step it up and chop off his head. That's the koch of Hushim ben Dan. You have to know when to fight. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, his name Hushim, Chet Shin Yud Mem, he's our superhero Hushim. Hushim is the same letters as Mashiach. Chet Shin Yud Mem Otiyot Mashiach. Dan has this deep connection to the Mashiach. Mashiach is also the numerical value of the word Nachash. Nachash is also Gematria Mashiach. Therefore, we have this concept of the snake being Dan, and ultimately Dan being this, having some kind of a connection to the Messianic age. We'll get to in more detail in a second. Okay, so now the snake normally symbolizes evil. It's the Yetzer Hara. It symbolizes Esav a lot of times. There's even one of the Achronim brings down that Esav had a tattoo of a snake on his thigh. But Dan is also the Nachash. But instead of using the venom to kill, he's going to use it to create the antidote. And that's the koch of a snake. The snake can kill with its venom, or through that venom you can produce the medicine, the antidote to heal from the venom. And even in today's time, the symbol of medicine in the West is this staff with a snake, 1 or 2 snakes coiled around it, depending on the image you see. It's these snakes coiled around the staff. Why is the snake part of the image of medicine? Because ultimately, from that snake venom, if you use it in the right kind of way, you can bring healing. So Dan is the snake. He's the symbol of the bitter, but he's the bitter used to heal from the bitter. But it's very dangerous. To use poison to cure sickness, you have to know the exact amount, the exact right time, not too much, not too little, because if not, then the medicine itself will kill the body. So therefore, that requires a lot of tefillot to Hashem. As we mentioned, that the Yaakov, when he prays for Dan, Lishuatcha kiviti Hashem, Dan is all about putting that hope in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's going to be playing with fire. He's going to be playing with venom. He's going to be playing with the bitter poison. But if you could do it in the right kind of way, with the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you could actually bring about the healing. The Mishnah in Gemara Rosh Hashanah, this is Daf Kaftet Amud Aleph. It actually explains that who heals, who ultimately heals. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu that gives the ultimate healing. And the Mishnah gives two cases from the Torah. The first case we already spoke about. Says the Mishnah, when we had that war against Amalek on the bottom, when the Jewish people, when Moshe raised his hands, the Jewish people would win. What? Is it the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu that wins? He puts his hands up, we win, his hands go down. What? That's the koch of his hands? It's actually more of a symbol. It teaches you as follows. Meaning, when Moshe raises his hands, it's a symbol for Jewish people looking up to the Shamayim, looking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we turn our eyes, we subjugate our hearts to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we put our full trust in you. Hayu mitkabrim. Ve'im lav, hayu noflim. And if they would look down, they wouldn't look to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They think it's their own kochi v'otzam yadi. It's my power that does it. Then they would fall. The Mishnah then gives a second example of the same exact principle. This one more relating much more to snakes. I actually want to give a little background to the story. In Sefer Bamidbar, there's a terrible story. It says, as Bamidbar, Perek Lamed Aleph, when the Jewish people were along the way, the pasuk says, "Vatiktsar nefesh ha'am baderech." They started to make a little bit of a balagan. Vaydaber ha'am ba'Elohim Moshe lama yitur mitzrayim namut b'midbar ki ein lechem ein mayim nafshenu katzam belechem hakol okel. They started complaining. Why did God take us out to die in this wilderness? There's no bread, there's no water. We only have this miserable food, this man, which we know is the most beautiful and most miraculous food possible. And Hashem punishes them. Vayishlach Adonai ba'am et hanechashim hasrafim vayashku et ha'am bayamot am rav miYisrael. So Hashem sends the serpents, the snakes, the nechashim, the srafim, and they bite the people, and many people die. Vayavo avam el Moshe, and the people came to Moshe. Vayomu chatanu, we sinned ki dibanu b'Adonai ubechai bevach. We spoke out against God, and we spoke out against you. He says, please pray to our God, get rid of the snakes. And Moshe Rabbeinu prayed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the nation. Vayomer Adonai al Moshe, aseh lecha saraf v'simoto al nes. Said Moshe Rabbeinu, create a saraf figure, create an image of a snake, and place him up on like the stick. Vayako nashuch v'ra'oto v'chai. Anybody who was bitten will look at it, and when he looks at the snake, he's going to be recovered. Vayas Moshe nachash nechoshet, and Moshe made a nachash of copper. Copper also shares the language of nechoshet. Nachash, the snake in there. Vayas Moshe nachash nechoshet. Vayismeu al hanes. Vayayim nashach nachash at the ish v'ibit el nachash hanechoshet v'chai. So he put this copper serpent, mounted it up, and when everybody would look at it, they would be healed. So we see that the snake bit and would poison, and then this copper snake would heal them. Says the Mishnah. Back to our Mishnah now. Kayotze b'davar ata omer aseh lecha saraf v'sim oto al nes vayako adushuk v'ra'oto. Take this metal a snake, this symbol of a snake, place him on a pole. The key nachash memit or nachash mehayer. What are you talking about? Does a serpent kill? Does a serpent give life? Like, what are you talking about? But rather the exact same thing. When you look up to the Shamayim, you look up at that snake on the pole, up in the Shamayim, that copper snake, and say, oh, it's a Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's the Shamayim, it's God that heals us, then you would be healed. If Chas Shalom, they would look down, then they would die. So Dan is that snake. Now, we find this also in the actual language of that war against Dan down there below, where Dan is called the Nechashalim. Nechashalim is same letters as Chalashim, is the weak ones, but also same letters as Nechashalim. Nachash, they are again the snake. But now we're trying to say from a more powerful perspective, they might have in them a koach of the antidote of the snake. They might have a koach of actually making the tikkun. We asked a fun question a couple months ago. Actually, we said, why does Amalek attack Dan in the back? If they were a bunch of spiritually low people, if they were sinners, if they were Avodah Zarah, so what's it worth? So remember when Yaakov blessed Dan, Yaakov said to Dan in the very beginning of his blessing, he said, "Yehi Dan nachash alei derech." Dan will be a snake on the derech, on the road. What does it mean on the derech? So said the Shvilei Pinchas that Dan actually was still on the derech. He messed up along the way, but ultimately Dan was in the derech, which he explains is the derech of teshuvah. Dan didn't fall completely gone, that he's gone from God completely. Rather, he was still on the derech meaning he had the ability to have that derech of teshuvah, which he was trying to get back on. So why did Amalek attack Dan? He wanted to stop the koch of teshuvah. He wanted to stop Dan from returning to God. He wanted to stop this concept of teshuvah. That's why it says, Asher karecha baderech, that Amalek tried to cool down the derech of the teshuvah. He wanted to try to make it that Dan wouldn't do the teshuvah. So despite Dan being punished, being spit out of the clouds, he still had the ability to come back because he still was on that derech, and therefore Amalek attacks him on the derech to try to bring him back. Now, interestingly, so we say Dan is the Nachash. There's a little bit, even though Yehuda is the main, is primarily the lion, there's a hint to a Nachash with Yehuda as well. As we know, who's the first person to jump into the splitting of the sea, the Yam Suf? It was Nachshon. Nachshon from Yehuda. Nachshon is again the language of the Nachash. So even in Yehuda, there's a bit of Nachash in there when you want to break through that Yam Suf. There's a bit of a hint of Dan in Yehuda himself. Okay. Now, according to one of the Midrashim, not only was Hushim deaf, he was also a mute. He couldn't speak. And now that works very well with the idea that he's the tikkun for the Nachash HaKadmon. The initial sin in the Garden of Eden took place from the snake. And what did the snake do? He did the first sin of speaking Lashon Hara to Eve, to Chava, and convincing her to eat from the tree. So the first sin of the world was Lashon Hara. So thus, Hushim, Gematria Nachash, Gematria Mashiach, the Nachash, if Hushim is really the deaf mute, he can't speak, he can't hear, so physically he can't sin with Lashon Hara, therefore he's going to be the one that's going to bring the tikkun for the original sin. Okay, moreover, I heard a couple of years ago from Rabbi Kahn, that Rabbi Kahn said that with less senses, if he doesn't have hearing, and now we're saying according to different midrash, he didn't even have speaking, so that means that the other senses get much stronger, hence his name is Hushim. So if that's true, then probably which one of his senses was very strong? His sense of smell. And it was probably a very enhanced sense of smell. So Chazal see in Shevet Dan a spark of Mashiach. There's a Havamina even that Shimshon, a Gibor, could have been Mashiach. Now, what do we know about Mashiach? Says the Gemara, Mashiach has to have a strong sense of smell. Now, why? Because the sense of smell was the only sense not to sin with the Etzadat. So therefore, the Mashiach is going to have a strong sense of smell. How do we know the Mashiach has to have a good sense of smell? Because says the Gemara, in Sanhedrin, Daf Tzadik Gimel Amud Bet. Bar Koziva, Malach Tarten Shenin Ufalga. Bar Koziba, meaning Bar Kochva, he ruled for 2.5 years. Amar Lehu Rabbanan, he said to the rabbis, Ana Mashiach, I'm the Mashiach. Amrulei, they said, wait a second, you're Mashiach? We got to test you. The Mashiach ketiv demorach v'da'en. By the Mashiach it said that he's going to be able to smell and judge. Next, anan imorach v'da'en. Kevan dechazi delom marach v'da'en katluha. They said, let's see if you really have the sense of smell and the sense of judging. Once they saw that he was not able to smell and judge, we spoke in the past about judging through smell. Okay, side ideas. But if you weren't able to smell and judge, then you're not going to make it. And then Katluha, ultimately, the Gentiles, the Goyim killed Bar Kochva. So what do we see from here? Mashiach has to have the ability to judge, and he has to have the ability to smell. So how does Yaakov begin by his blessing of Dan? He says, Dan yadin amo ke'echad shiftei Yisrael. Dan is the din, he's the judge. He has the ability to be a judge. Also, we're saying right now that Hushim had a strong sense of smell, so Hushim, Otiot Mashiach, has that ability of smell and judging. He is from Dan. Okay. Interestingly, in the Likutei Moharan, the Rabbi Nachman Betzalel actually brings down the smell. He relates it to the koch of tefillah. Another character trait we said about Dan, he always looks to Kadosh Baruch Hu. He sees he says tefillah comes from the koch of smell as well. That's how Rabbi Nachman learns that Gemara, which again works very, very well with the fact that Dan has to turn to Hashem in prayer. So we said the tribe of Dan looks like the lowest of the low. He looks like he has physical disabilities, spiritual disabilities, but ultimately he steps it up. He does big things. And then the Pasuk says, when it speaks about all the kids of the Jewish people, it says, Ubnei Dan Hushim. And the children of Dan are Hushim. And the commentator said, what are you talking about? Ubnei Dan Hushim. And the children of Dan are Hushim. There's only one son. He only has one kid, Hushim. It should be Ben Dan. Why does it say Bnei Dan in the plural? And not only that, why is he called Hushim? He said, because he's a physical disability. Look at how Nebuch, look at how terrible this is. Chazita, the tribe of Dan only has one kid, and he's handicapped. But what do we say? When we get to the times in the desert, the Shevet Dan is going to be gigantic. It's going to be the second of the largest tribes, only being surpassed by Yehuda in the front. So the second largest tribe is Dan, Ubnei Dan Hushim. You think Hushim can't be great? No, all the Banim, all these great numbers, all the Revavot, all of the myriads that are going to come out of Dan, it's all from that one guy, Hushim. And this concept of Revavot, of having many kids, so they actually say, they bring down the Midrash, that on the flag of Dan, every one of the four main flags had a pasuk on it. And the flag of Dan had a pasuk that said, it's a pasuk actually from the second pasuk of the Sha'ar Nun, when the ark is laid to rest, Shuva Hashem Revavot Alfei Yisrael. May Hashem return the Revavot, the myriads, Revavot Alfei Yisrael, the hundreds of thousands, the tens of thousands of Jews should be returned. Dan looks so lowly, but really he has major greatness. He has himself the Revavot. Okay, so as we're saying is that Dan is complicated. He is the snake, but he's ultimately going to become the lion. He's going to become the antidote. Be'ezrat Hashem, in the next part of this recording, I'm going to want to look a little bit to the birth of Dan and how that may have affected who his personality and what he's all about.